If you've been watching the news for the past few days or on Twitter or TikTok, you're probably familiar with the name Gabby Petito, the 22-year-old aspiring social media influencer who was reported missing after her fiance returned from their van life excursion without her. On Sunday, human remains believed to be Petito's were found in a national park in Wyoming. No family should ever have to endure that kind of pain, and the Petito family certainly deserves answers and justice. But the way this story has captivated the nation has many wondering, why not the same media attention when people of color go missing? Well, the answer actually has a name: missing white woman.
Yeah, I'm not sure why there was a big freak out about what Joy Reid said, and certainly about the families who have come forward and said, hey, my loved one has been missing. Even the speed with which the process works. So we know Gabby Petito's remains, when they were found, they were confirmed to be her within 24 hours. There was another young man whose name was Jelani Day, a young African-American man, and it took them 19 days to tell the family that it was indeed his body that they had encountered. Why does it take, more than 3 weeks, or almost 3 weeks, rather than, the 24 hours that it took for Gabby Petito? Now, I do think it is fair to point out that Gabby Petito was a social media influencer. So she had a big social media following. I think she had 50,000 followers, on TikTok. And there's so much to be said about this. I hope maybe we can expand upon this in our Monday show. But in terms of missing white woman syndrome, I understand whenever you bring up race, a lot of times people on the right start to freak out, but we also have to remember that 710 indigenous women are missing, or largely women, are missing in the Wyoming area where Gabby Petito was located. But you don't know their names. It's not an indictment of Gabby Petito. Everyone believes she deserves justice and coverage. It's not saying anything bad about Gabby Petito. It's talking about the media, which you and I criticize all the time.
Yep, I agree.
And the way we value, certain people's lives, black and brown and red lives, are not valued in the same way according to the media. I can tell you one other example. If you remember in Cleveland, Ariel Castro, he was the guy who kidnapped Amanda Berry. And it was a big deal when they found Amanda Berry, right? And, it was like the guy with the crazy afro, and another guy kicked in the door, and they found Amanda Berry. Amanda Berry was with two other young women, but no one knows their names. Everyone knows Amanda Berry. Those two other young women were Puerto Rican, but their names aren't plastered everywhere. It was Amanda Berry, Amanda Berry, Amanda Berry. We all know JonBenet Ramsey. We all know Elizabeth Smart. We all know Chandra Levy. Natalie Holloway was the #1 story in 2005. You know what else happened in 2005? Hurricane Katrina. Natalie Holloway was the most covered story on the internet in 2005. Fact check it. More than Hurricane Katrina and more than a tsunami that killed like 10,000 people in Asia. So there is this fascination that the media has, and it's not a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing. It is a media thing. We value certain lives more than others. And I think it's important that we point that out. And 40% of the women who are human trafficked are Black women. So much of this happens, and their families don't get the same satisfaction of knowing that the entire populace is searching for them.
As a matter of distribution and like percentages, it's more rare for a white woman to go missing than it is a Black woman. It's a much higher percentage of Black women become missing person cases.
Yeah, Native Americans.
And then there's there's a lot here. The idea that the media, to include Joy Reid, is in the position of criticizing this disparity. It's not Joy Reid. Joy Reid's not the only person who did this week, by the way. There were a number of other media outlets who invoked this idea that there's a missing white woman syndrome. Like, really? You have the audacity to do a segment like this when you never do a segment on a missing Black person? Like you've never been like up until the point that it's useful for you to make this comparison? Like, spare me. You've got the microphone. You've got the ability to get those messages out there, and you're not. So stop like criticizing everybody else. This is like that Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other. Like, how come you don't ever cover Black people who are missing? You're like, you're the media. What are you talking about? So there's that. The other is to pull back for a moment, Joy Reid referenced a 24-year-old man who is missing, and he's not getting all the same attention as Gabby Petito. One of the reasons for that seems a little obvious to me. The media likes to pick things that are extremes, right? It's hyperbole. It's like, they kind of lean on stories that have like the most shock value that they can possibly get out. And so a young man being missing, an adult man being missing it doesn't have that snap, right? It's like not the kind of thing that they're going to run with because it's just not an extreme case. You can probably think it to yourself like, well, a young man's got a better chance of fighting for himself. And that kind of thing is stronger than a woman. Whereas a woman is helpless and she's out there and blah, blah, blah. There's video of this. Obviously there's what we call elements in the media. There are video elements here. So there's body camera footage of Gabby Petito. You can see her. She's crying. She's, emotional out. And when the cops pull her over, she's pretty, which plays a role in this. Like, so, if the better looking you are, if you go missing, that's, is it forbidden to mention that? That's the reason people do this. I mean, you talk about John Benet Ramsey, right? This cute little girl with the curls and stuff. Of course, everyone looks at this picture and they're like, oh my God, that poor little girl is missing. What is going on?
So, but I find little Black girls to be cute too.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
And they don't get, maybe because they're not blonde and blue eyed and have the curls and all of that. I find a lot of Black women to be attractive as well. But for some reason, America doesn't seem to think so. And I think that's the frustrating thing for a lot of people. And I will say the Black media, which doesn't, I guess isn't the mainstream media, but the Black media, Jet Magazine I used to actually assign a piece, about this very thing and them highlighting young Black people who have gone missing. Mm-hmm. And there is local news that talks about Black women going missing, and not just Black, but Native American women. Large numbers of Native American women have gone missing, have been sexually assaulted, have been murdered. And yet there's not this outcry and we don't know their names. To this day, and I'm ashamed to say this, I don't know their names now.